Hey, it's Scott Bertram, and I want to tell you about something new from Hillsdale College. It's the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. Check it out right now. Go to podcast.hillsdale.edu. The Hillsdale College Podcast Network offers free nationwide access to all of Hillsdale's podcast content. That means shows like the Hillsdale Dialogues, the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, the Hillsdale College K-12 Classical Education Podcast, the Larry P. Arnn Show, and now, new, the Imprimis Podcast. You can listen wherever you are and whenever you want, and it's always free. Find out more about all of our shows at podcast.hillsdale.edu. You can subscribe to any program with new episodes delivered right to your device. Or sign up for the super feed. That means you get access to absolutely everything posted on the site. If you want to come close to stepping inside a Hillsdale College classroom, well, the Hillsdale College Podcast Network is for you. Get informed and get entertained at podcast.hillsdale.edu. That's podcast.hillsdale.edu.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Bubble, a Hillsdale College Career Services production where we take you outside the classroom and into the professional arena to bring you special tips and tricks from recent alumni in all areas of practice. This show is part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. I'm Lauren Scott, and joining me today is David Stanton from Hillsdale's class of 1998 and Headmaster at Oakdale Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Lauren, thanks for having me. I appreciate being on.
After graduating from Hillsdale, you became a history and Bible teacher. Having been a teacher in the past, how do you think that helps you now as a headmaster?
Well, it's a great question. I think the most important thing in that is as a headmaster, I'm responsible or in charge of all of the teachers at my school. So having a teaching background helps me as I lead people, almost to the point that it has become important enough to me that I actually have myself and all of the administrators at my school are still responsible for teaching. So I've been able to jump back into teaching over the last couple of years.
What would you say is one of the hardest challenges you face in being a headmaster, but what also is something that's rewarding about the position itself?
Yeah, challenges, it's almost the same thing in some way. Challenges and rewarding is that when you work in a school, you really never know what the day is going to bring. Oakdale has about 200 students in it. From junior kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade, and with that come all the excitements and all the surprises of 200 students and about 25 staff to what's going to happen from some great discussions about great books to a stubbed toe and a bloody nose to students trying to navigate their way through life, and it's just it's exceptionally joyful most every day, and they're just the rewards of watching students as they progress through their time and watching the interactions they have with the other teachers, and just wrestling with those things that are good, that are true, and that are beautiful.
So what originally led you to become a headmaster? Why was this something that you were interested in? It was not originally. I started teaching right out of Hillsdale, as you said, and loved teaching. I taught ninth grade world history for a few years and made a transition into public education for a while and kept teaching history classes and used I had a minor in French while I was at Hillsdale and got to teach French classes and just really, really loved teaching. But I thought I felt like I could perhaps do some more in a school and felt the call to try to try and become an administrator, and ended up becoming an administrator in a middle school. And as I went through that for almost a decade, I just thought there's something else that I wanted to return to, and so kind of went back to my Hillsdale roots right, with classical education, and thought there's got to be something more. And so I was just blessed to be able to rediscover classical education now as an administrator, and see an opportunity at a place like Oakdale, to serve at that role as a head of school or headmaster.
I understand that you are a retired naval officer. When did you become involved in the Navy, and how do you think this experience impacted your career?
Yeah, I just officially retired just a couple of months ago. All of my paperwork was finalized, but I joined right in the wake of the attacks of September 11th, and that was not the only reason. I'd actually thought about it beforehand, and I'd already started teaching for a few years. But as I taught my history classes, I kept coming back to the concept that there were some people who had given of themselves to serve our country, and I thought I needed to somehow find a way to do that. And through some conversations and prayer and discernment, was led to explore service in the Navy Reserve. And so I suppose for those who might not be aware, it's typically a commitment of one weekend every month and then roughly 2 weeks a year. And so from 2001 until just a couple of months ago, I was able to serve in any number of different commands with the European Command and Central Command and Office of Naval Intelligence. All these wonderful experiences. Got to travel a good part of the world, and was deployed a couple times. I served in Afghanistan back in 2007, and then in 2021 was sent over to Bahrain in the Middle East while I was at Oakdale. So it was just a fascinating thing, and I think what helped me in my educational career is, the military is known for, amongst many things, it's known for leadership and leadership development, and giving people responsibilities that they can rise up to and be, ultimately responsible for. And I was given that in many different avenues, many different ways, up to and including becoming a commanding officer of a unit and responsible for every aspect of about 60 sailors. And I think those things translate to a school administrator and to a teacher of you're responsible for the things that happen, and yet you're training those people who, in a military parlance, are those people underneath you, but you're training people constantly to rise up to their own giftings and to challenge themselves. So I think the two careers, most people may not see it, but the two careers mesh really, really well, actually.
As a history and secondary education double major, are there any classes that you took while you were a Hillsdale student that you would recommend, or classes that really had an influence on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if all of them are still there, because I think in talking with friends in the education, the classical ed department, I think the classes have just improved in the time. So I was in a time in Hillsdale where you would move through your education program and get a state teaching license, and now with the classical ed classes, I think the pedagogy and the help in building school culture are so much richer than they were even when I was there in the late 90s. But I think working current Hillsdale student working their way through the classical core, obviously though it's a requirement, I'd just say to enjoy that time of learning and thinking deeply, because those that would be interested in education, and especially in a classical school, we really want teachers in whatever area they would find themselves led to teach, to be able to lead students well. So the grammar class I know is very famous that Dr. Copeland teaches, and just so many classes that teach you about the big ideas that you can then share, and because you're passionate about them, are just fantastic. And if you're thinking you want to, as a college student, consider teaching in the middle school, high school, or what we call logic and rhetoric school in classical schools, diving deep in a major. For me, it was history and taking history classes. To give one example of one that has translated well for me was Dr. Connor's Two World Wars class and seminar was one of the most memorable classes I ever took in my 4 years at Hillsdale. And I remember and use a lot of the material and notes still when I teach the Second World War in particular to my high school students.
While you were a Hillsdale student, what were you involved in, and how do you think these involvements helped you later in life?
Yeah, I did a couple of the honorary societies that were around. I was in the History Honorary Society, and I actually was in the Theater Honorary Society. So I think that one in particular was a stretch for me because I had no drama or theater background, and I was never on stage, but it was one of the lighting and sound techs there, and it really put me in a situations that I normally would not have found myself. And I think that was one of the great things about college is you try those things that are going to stretch you. I was a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity while I was on campus as well, and again, the leadership opportunities that presented themselves in the house there were just fantastic. And overall, whether it's Sigma Chi or in the different honorary societies and just on campus, the connections that you make, the friendships that develop, and the bond that you have while you are living on campus together and studying those wonderful, wonderful things, to me, were truly life-changing, and it's one of the reasons that Hillsdale College still is such a special place to me.
For alumni or current students who are interested in maybe becoming a headmaster one day or to have an administrative role in education, what would you recommend that they be doing now in order to prepare for that? Should they be looking for specific jobs or internships?
Yeah, if school administration is a desire, I would always say there are a couple things you should do. First is get a couple of years teaching under your belt. Get some experience in the classroom. See what it's like. And the second one is at certain points after you've done that for a couple of years, find a current administrator and shadow them. Take a day away from your classroom and just follow a different administrator around and see what it's all about, because there are many things in the transition from teacher to administrator that are very much just on-the-job training, and you just learn as you go as a school administrator. And I'd certainly, in classical schools, would highly recommend, having spent some time recently with the Master of Arts and Classical Ed students on campus there, to take those classes or to apply for that program, because what they do is they do that deeper philosophical dive that a leader needs. Because, as a headmaster of a classical school, though I logistically run the operations, the day-to-day, the business portion of the school, I purposely changed the title from head of school to headmaster because I need to, even in my title, represent that I'm the educational leader, the philosophical leader of the school. And so continuing to pour into your own learning of classical things and of classical methods and everything else will only serve you well if you're looking into school administration, in a classical school in particular.
What is something that you think students should take advantage of or appreciate while they're at their limited time at Hillsdale?
This may sound cliche, I suppose, and maybe it's 25 or so years removed, but I would encourage Hillsdale students to take advantage of every moment they have there on campus. It is something that sometimes I suppose you might not realize until after you've gone through it. But the things that Hillsdale students study and the things that are talked about on campus and just the way that things are done there on campus. I mean, we throw out words all the time like good and true and beautiful, but I can tell you just have to look around and see where that's not the case on so many universities, let alone in the K-12 educational world. So I'd say just absorb it and digest all that goodness, all that truth, and all that beauty as you spend your time there, because I think in some ways the charge of a Hillsdale College student and then alumni is to try and recreate that for me in the educational world, or for others that would listen in the business world or something like that. So it is just such a wonderful place that you want to live all of it to its fullest potential while you're there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to speak with me.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it. And it's wishing everybody the best as the year ends on college, and especially in your exams coming up.
You have been listening to Beyond the Bubble, a podcast by Hillsdale College Career Services. This show is part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. I'm Lauren Scott, and have a blessed day.